Welcome, friends.
Hello, friends. We're delighted to see you.
Yes, we are.
We are drinking our warm comfort tea this morning. It's so warming and delicious, and we hope that you also have a cup of something warm to sit with us for a few moments. Taking the time in your day at some time, whether it's the morning or afternoon, but just, I always tell our students too, like you think of like people in England taking the afternoon tea, whether that's true or not. I love that idea of setting aside a little bit of time for yourself during the day, if at all possible, just to take a deep breath and to enjoy something that you love. And something warm always makes us feel cozy inside.
It sure does. Well, this is Valentine's week.
Yes.
We hope you had a wonderful Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Yesterday was actually, the day before is actually Galentine's Day.
Galentine's Day, I love that.
So for all of the gal friends out there that we give our gifts to or cards to.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And in case you got roses for Valentine's Day, and always it's usually roses and chocolate when you think about Valentine's Day.
Yeah, the commercialized version of it is definitely roses and chocolate. And of course, they hike the prices up on the roses right before Valentine's Day.
They do. But in case you got some roses, enjoy them, of course.
Yes.
And remember, though, that they have been sprayed with a preservative, and so they are really toxic.
Yeah, you don't want to use those for your teas or anything that you're going to ingest. We love having roses in our teas, but only those that we grow or we know are from an organic source.
Don't take a big smell out of them either, because that is the toxins again.
Yeah,
they're pretty to look at. And I think most of the commercial roses really don't have a good fragrance to them.
They really don't. They're bred to be pretty, and that's about it, unfortunately, because when I go to plant a rose, my first thing I look for is a beautiful fragrance, and then lots of petals and beauty.
But the one thing you can do with the roses that you received is to, when they're almost done being pretty, hang them upside down, let them dry in a little bunch, and you can collect the petals and put them in a potpourri if you wanted to.
Nice idea.
It's very pretty around a candle or around a plant, anything. It's just pretty.
Yeah.
And if you put something else in there, it may smell really good with it too, like an orange peels or anything else.
Yeah.
So one could add
even
to
lavender.
It. But it's a good way to prolong those pretty roses that you did get.
Yeah, that's a nice idea.
And I always think chocolate. Of course, we all pretty much love chocolate. I do know a couple people that don't like chocolate.
One of my kids doesn't like chocolate.
No,
the only time in my life I didn't like chocolate was when I was pregnant with him, which is kind of funny.
It's kind of funny.
He came out not liking chocolate. I'm like, that is just weird.
There's probably a reason for that. But chocolate is always, we think, a good thing, but it isn't always a good thing.
Not always a good thing. We love, chocolate is, we say chocolate's an herb, and it is because it's a plant that's useful, and it's been used for, thousands of years and in the cultures where it grows. But one of the things to really watch for with chocolates, and you may have seen, I think last year, the Consumer Reports article came out. I subscribe to an organization called Consumer Lab, which also does independent consumer testing and on lots of health-related things, which I really appreciate. They're very extensive testing and breaking down of the research, which I think is really helpful for people. And one of the things that we want to really watch for in chocolates are heavy metals. And a lot of people don't know that or think about that, but heavy metals attach to our cells and can prevent them from performing their functions. And that can cause really serious issues. And heavy metals can accumulate in the body. It's not like something that washes out of your body. The older we get, the more accumulation we have from all of the many exposures that we've had. And it's really unfortunate to think of something that we love so much like chocolate contributing to those really serious issues. But the two main ones in chocolates are cadmium and lead. And I know that I didn't think that lead was an issue anymore. You're thinking that they got rid of the leaded paint, right? They got rid of the leaded gas. Well, that's not actually totally true. Lead is still an issue, and cadmium is also an issue in chocolate, unfortunately. Cadmium can be toxic to kidneys, can help soften bones, and can affect fetal development. And lead is still a really pervasive danger. It can cause permanent bone and neurological damage in children. So we really want to pay attention to which chocolates are the safest. And fortunately, a couple of these research groups have done really good extensive research on that. And a couple things to really think about though are that when you look at the percentage of cocoa, we usually try and do dark chocolate. That percentage is just how much cocoa is relative to all the other ingredients. And in dark chocolate, sugar is usually the only other ingredient in dark chocolate. So the percentage in dark chocolate tells you the percentage that is not sugar. So like a 72% dark chocolate bar, you could also read that as a 28% sugar bar.
Yes.
So just keep that in mind. Just because it's dark chocolate doesn't mean it doesn't contain sugar, and sometimes that's hard to hear and hard to remember. But we want to make sure that we are, recognizing that when we put it in our body. I think it's really interesting too. I used to use Dutch processed cocoa powder, and it's less bitter. It's more mild, but it also doesn't contain the high levels of flavanols that makes cocoa actually beneficial for our health. So I avoid now Dutch processed cocoa, and I just go for cocoa powder that has been shown to be lower in the heavy metals. And that's what we really want. We want chocolate or cocoa that is highest in the flavanols, the really good antioxidants and health compounds, and lowest in the heavy metals. So that's what we want. And one thing to actually remember that I think is really interesting, generally we go organic everything, but unfortunately organic products in the cocoa realm or chocolate realm are generally more contaminated with cadmium than the non-organic products. And I'm not sure why that is, but that is the case. And so we don't do organic in chocolate, unfortunately. And so when we're looking for chocolate, it's interesting because Trader Joe's, I know we've talked about it'd be nice to have a Trader Joe's, but Trader Joe's chocolates, in a lot of the testing, they exceed the limits for heavy metals, or they exceed what you would want to ingest, not necessarily the FDA levels, but those can be pretty lax. We want to have a little bit higher standards, and Hershey's often exceeds those limits as well. Ghirardelli usually scores pretty well, which is what we switched to after we read the research. And so Ghirardelli, which you can find pretty much anywhere. It's interesting because some of the brands that we would consider maybe the healthiest, like at the health food store, there's one called Alter Eco is that brand, and they are usually really, really high in heavy metals, unfortunately. Now, for cocoa powders, it's really interesting because the Consumer Lab, that I love their research, their top pick for cocoa powder among all the cocoa powders was Target's Good and Gather brand. They found that it had the highest concentration of cocoa flavonoids and the lowest concentrations of cadmium and very little lead. And so that's our cocoa powder that we prefer also. So
Great.
yeah, it's just good to be informed and to make informed decisions.
And we try to keep up on a lot of this stuff as
Yes.
much as possible. Tamara does a lot of research on a lot of these things, and we always have to watch where these tests are being done at.
For sure.
Independent is the way we want to go to believe what is being said. And, sometimes they come out 2 or 3 years later with something different, but normally that is a great guideline to follow.
For sure.
And so we sometimes change our eating habits because of that.
Well, yeah, I think the more you know, the better you do. And
exactly.
What Maya Angelou said, when you know better, you do better. Maybe that was Oprah Winfrey, but when you know better, you do better. And that's really the case. And this, the concern about heavy metals in chocolate has been around for a long, long time. It kind of fell off people's radar until in 2023, when Consumer Reports published their study again, which was actually shortly after Consumer Lab redid their reports on chocolate. They keep redoing them so that their information is current, which is nice.
So look for a good brand of chocolate that has less of the metals in it.
Yes, and high flavonoids.
Yes, and the darker the better.
Yes, of course, and less sugar.
yes.
Less sugar, the better, for sure.
That's right. So have you been thinking about starting plants yet?
Yes, I'm getting ready to start my seeds because the full moon is coming up, and we usually start our seeds the week before the full moon. And that is when studies have shown that the seeds absorb the most liquid and have the best chance of germination. So that's what we usually do.
They want to come through the soil up to the sun.
Yes, for sure.
And then we usually use the jug method outside,
Yep.
which works really well for us instead of the mess inside and
Yes.
yes, having to deal with everything else that you have to do
Pets
inside.
and everything. Yes.
And so it works really well to have them outside.
Yeah, it does.
And it's a fun process always to
It is a
watch.
fun process. See the little babies come up and
Yes.
appear and
And,
get big.
and of course, it means a little bit more work and attention.
Well, yeah,
that's
spring.
part of the process.
Spring is always
Part
more
of the
work.
process. That's right. And part of our spring ritual, really.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
is-
I love winter because it's that time of rest, and then when spring
Mhm.
starts to roll around about February 2nd,
Yes.
that quickening, I'm thinking, okay, here comes the work
Yes.
season.
And the weather has been so gorgeous, it's made us all think about the seeds and the growing of the
Yes.
seeds. But we do know that there'll probably be some winter weather around the corner.
Yeah,
So-
but that's good for starting the native seeds and the perennial seeds because
Absolutely.
they need that colder weather for
And-
that stratification.
And this is definitely the time to be throwing out a lot of those seeds.
Yes,
And
the native seeds.
to put them on top of the earth
Yeah.
and let them soak on down with the snows that may come yet or the rains. And there's so many of the perennials that you can do this with. So, and the natives.
Yeah,
which is a good thing
yeah,
to go.
exactly. And so,
Yes.
yeah, some of the flowers that are cold hardy too,
Yes,
even if
that's
they're
right.
annuals. Yeah.
I like to show. This is the month of hearts, so I'd like to
Yes.
show. I showed this last year, but of course we have lots of new viewers,
Yes.
and so I'd like to show the little heart mat I keep out at home too.
So
And
sweet.
it has 2 hearts on it, and of course it's not the usual red and white or pink that you see around with hearts. It's done with old-fashioned looking fabrics, and this happens to be all wool. This is another Maggie pattern, and I just love it. It's a sweet little 2-heart mat,
It's beautiful.
and of course the edges are done with an army blanket,
Mm,
which I like too, and the back is just an old calico.
what a great way to repurpose an old army blanket.
Yes, it is. And then I think I'll go ahead and read the quote for the day.
Yes.
And this is one by Jay Ruskin, and it's one that I've always enjoyed also. It's called, I know well that happiness is in the little things.
Oh.
Yes, that's true. The little things bring us the most happiness. So, and with that, we'll plan to see you next week.
Good earth blessings to you.